The situation with Assange has gone from bad, you can say, at this point, to worse. Let's talk about it on the soapbox. So, a grand jury today, apparently, it seems to be only a few minutes ago, returned an indictment. That indictment contained 17 additional charges against Assange. As you know, they're going against Assange on the notion this has nothing to do with the Wikileaks stuff, meaning from the Clinton emails. This has to do with Chelsea Manning. Part of the reason that they're squeezing Manning so much is because they're trying to get evidence on Assange. Now, there's a laughable comment in this that I kind of want to read out, but just to nail it, the new charges include allegations that he violated the law not only by soliciting and receiving national security information, but also by publishing what John Demers, the head of the Justice Department's National Security Division, described to reporters on Thursday as a narrow subset of documents that identified the names of individuals who were working with the U.S. government, including sources in Afghanistan and Iraq. Demers rebuffs the argument raised by Assange's arrest that WikiLeaks founder was targeted for work as a journalist. Yes, he was. I mean, effectively, what is a journalist's job, right? Hold government accountable. How do you hold government accountable if you don't know what your government is doing? They always use national security as the reason to go after people who are actually doing journalism. But in this case, this notion that Julian Assange is not a journalist is nonsense. It's baloney. Oh, he's revealing names. That's always the argument. Let's keep going. I think there's one more part in this. Assange was originally charged with one case, yes. He was originally had one charge associated with it, and now they're adding in additional charges. The original thing had to do with supposedly helping Manning crack into the computers. I don't necessarily know how they're going to prove that, so it sounds like they're giving a litany of charges with this notion of being able to get him on at least one. By the way, they have to hand all of this to Britain in one package within the context of 60 days. After that, they can't add any additional charges to it. Also, I strongly suspect that part of the reason Sweden is coming back is like, oh, maybe we'll take another bite at the apple. It's just in case Britain decides not to extradite. Meaning, if Britain says, look, we're not going to extradite him back to the United States, say for the moment that the judicial system in Britain is not overtly politicized. And by the way, I don't have that great feeling of that, seeing as they put him in prison for 90 days. 90 weeks, I'm sorry. I'm saying that wrong. 50 weeks. A year. 50 weeks. But say for the moment that it's not. Say for the moment it's not politicized. And they say, look, we're not going to extradite him to the United States for journalism. However they fight that, however they defend that, however that comes out, if they say we're not putting him to the United States, Sweden comes up and says, okay, we'll take a bite. With this notion that Sweden will. Meaning, when he gets into Sweden, Sweden will most likely, as a submissive nation, just as submissive and not more so as Britain, will hear United States extradition warrant. And you have another extradition fight on your hands, well, I get the feeling he's not going to win. I suppose that's why they're doing this much. It's overkill, right? We're going to have 17 charges. We're going to get him on something. And then so the first thing is we got to get him here. We can't trust Britain entirely. Just in case the thing with Britain falls through, we have Sweden. It's this nonsense. And if you're thinking of being over conspiratorial, maybe, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm wrong. Clearly, the United States wanted to get their hands on him. Clearly, they were pushing Ecuador for years, especially after Moreno took power. Clearly, they were squeezing him. There are documents, WikiLeaks documents actually, showing about using things like the IMF loans as asymmetrical weapons against other nations. Why wouldn't I think that? It's come up weird not to think that. I mean, based on the information that you know. And yeah, you have these submissive nations that work in tandem with the United States that probably also don't particularly like Assange because he's revealing what they're doing behind the scenes. It's embarrassing. When the documents of the Trans-Pacific Partnership was published, and Obama was out there screaming, "Oh, it's so progressive! It's so progressive!" He looked like a clown. He looked utterly absurd. You could read the document for yourself. Not to mention, you even had that part where the Prime Minister, I think, made this point of saying, yeah, we can't reveal what's in this until 5 years after it's signed. How are you going to sign a document and you're not going to tell the public what it is? This is kind of my point. It is vital to have this bit of information. And you ask yourself, why don't, these newscasters, these guys who make these millions of dollars, these CNNs, the MSNBCs, they have all of these vast resources. And it seems like the only information they get is when somebody is leaking it to them to intentionally get it out in the public in the first place. Essentially stenographers. No, I don't think this is good news. I'm putting it at the bottom. Manning is not testifying. Manning is not testifying. I don't care what you do to her. She's not testifying. So if your case is fully dependent and hinges on the testimony of Manning, good luck. She had bet her brand on this at this point. There is no way. She has no capacity to do so. They asked her, actually, and God, she says epic things sometimes, which I love. Manning has refused to testify, and judge has ordered her jailed until she complies, until the term of the grand jury expires. Right? She was briefly released. And where is it? Asked on Thursday if Manning had changed her mind and cooperated with prosecutors, the justice official said she remained in jail, implying that she refused to testify. Manning told the judge at the time she would rather starve to death than testify. That's so badass. That's so badass. I love it. I would rather starve to death. Because the Assange case is to some degree interrelated with the Manning case. If Manning doesn't testify, how are you getting your information? I'll leave it here. This one wasn't meant to be long. It was just kind of the update. I saw Cassandra Fairbanks on Twitter, and she was cranky and pissed off. And this is why. Yeah, this is why. Vault 7 WikiLeaks pissed intelligence agencies off. Yes, it did. Do you know that there was a back channel between Julian Assange and the FBI, and certain politicians, because they were trying to get the information. They wanted to get their hands on Vault 7, and they wanted him, and Assange made the point to him that, look, I'd work with you to eliminate some of the names and the people that are a part of this process, but we are releasing this. And set the date that they were going to release it. And they start leaking it and releasing it. At the point where Assange was dealing with one of these guys, they tried to scuttle this. Something happened. One of the Democrats, John Warner, scuttled it with Comey or something like that. I don't fully remember the main details of the story. But it created bad blood. The guy didn't necessarily want to break the channel, but Assange, at that point, didn't want to have anything to do with him. He didn't trust him. But at one point, they were working on that particular one. Yeah. God, man, that's a good point. Trump, you moron, you're losing more of your base, Raymond Kisner, because they love Assange. What Trump doesn't get, and maybe he should, but he doesn't. I don't think he does. Going after Assange is a bad precedent. It's a bad journalistic precedent, for one point. But also, politically for him, there are a lot of people that believe Assange helped him. And don't misunderstand, and understand why. Donald Trump is out there screaming, WikiLeaks, release more information, and all this other stuff. And then you get in office, and you're like, I'm going to get that son of a bitch. What? You seem schizophrenic. How are you screaming for a guy 1 minute, and then you get there and they ask you about WikiLeaks, and you say, I don't know what that is. He does absurd, ridiculous things. They're literally jailing to coerce her. Yes, Trini be fine. That's exactly what it is. They're literally torturing her to coerce her to testify. That's what it is. We're going to hold you in prison until we get you to say what we need you to say. Because if she comes out and says he had nothing to do with it, is that going to be what she wants to hear? Oh, he's lying, Judge. She's lying. She's lying. Ultimately, they are torturing her to get her to testify. And Trina, that is a perfect example. That is a perfect example.